Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at CachyOS. CachyOS is a blazingly fast customizable Linux distro, as it says on the website, based on Arch Linux. And so CachyOS is something that I kind of stumbled across while I was traversing DistroWatch about a week ago. And it has actually been about 10 days since I've made a video because I've had some technical issues. And I've actually made this video like 2, maybe even 3 times. I've made an attempt to make this video, but because of some technical problems, I've gone to a 0 KB file every time I've finished my recording. And I finally narrowed it down to Wayland. Yes, I had almost forgot that I switched over to Wayland session about a week and a half ago, just to kind of give it another chance to see if maybe Wayland was kind of ready for prime time, at least on my hardware, because I know some people are having pretty stellar results with Wayland. And so it turned out that the issue was Wayland. So when I went back to X11, I kind of eliminated that 0 KB file. It seemed like anytime I did a recording over 15 or 20 minutes, then for some reason it would just kind of corrupt and go to 0 KB. And here in X11, it seems to be working. So X it is. And as it says here on the website, CachyOS is designed to deliver lightning fast speeds and stability, ensuring a smooth and enjoyable computing experience every time you use it. Wow, I like that, every time. Whether you're a seasoned Linux user or just starting out, CachyOS is the ideal choice for those looking for a powerful, customizable, and blazingly fast operating system. Blazingly fast always works for me too. And so that here they have a download button. And then also here, we got a screenshot, and it seems to be a KDE environment, which is really cool. And then they kind of go on to list some benefits here. Experience cutting-edge Linux performance with CachyOS, a distribution built on Arch Linux. CachyOS features the optimized Linux CachyOS kernel, utilizing the advanced Bohr scheduler for unparalleled performance. So I'm not really sure what Bohr is.
Laura, boring.
But anything that can enhance performance is always a plus. So here we got a download link right up here in the upper right corner, and we also have a download button here. So I'm just going to click this guy. It takes us out to the download page, and it appears that KDE Plasma is their flagship, but they also have a GNOME version, XFCE, lots of desktops here. Of course, this one is under construction, so an XFCE Live edition is not yet available. However, I'm pretty sure you can download the XFCE through the Calamares installer. They give you a choice of desktops. And the reason I know that is because I'm a seasoned installer now because of all the videos I had to make in an attempt to make this video. Ugh. So anyway, yes, lots of desktops. In fact, they have a lot more you can choose from. The Qfish, which I guess is still under development. i3WM, Window Manager, Wayfire, LXQ, OpenBox, Cinnamon, UKUI, LXDE, Mate, and Budgie. So you got a ton of choices for desktops, which I think is awesome as well. And you can install this either through the Visual Calamares installer or a command line. So if you prefer the command line, maybe you're a more advanced user, the command line might be something you may prefer because it gives you a lot more options for customization during your install. But for us humans, we're just going to use the easy way. So I'm going to download this, load it in, and I'll be right back. Okay, I am in the live environment now, and here we have our CachyOS menu. And actually, I didn't have to download that image because I downloaded it already a long time ago. But anyways, let's boot in here, get into the live environment, and then we'll take a look. And there's our welcome to CachyOS. So we're almost booted in here. And it always takes a little bit longer to boot into a live environment because it's got to load in all the live information here. That's always something that I was kind of curious about. It kind of looks like it's upside down. But here's our Cachy splash screen coming in. And any second now. And there it is. Beautiful. So here we have our welcome to CachyOS. Got a really nice looking theme to it. And here down on the bottom, you can see we got our icons positioned in the middle, kind of Windows 11 style, because we have our full panel on the bottom that extends the full length. And then over here we have our KDE menu, and I really like the theming. The theming is really quite gorgeous. And I'm not quite sure what that theme is. I'll have to take a look at that again. But here's our welcome to CachyOS, our hello screen. So I'm going to just launch the installer here real quick. And then it gives you a choice between offline and online. So if you do the offline, I believe it's just going to install the KDE desktop. And then, of course, you got to do updates after the install. If you do the online, you can choose from other desktops as well. So if you're more interested in trying a different desktop like XFCE or LXQT, you could go with the online and it will download that desktop and install it for you. Plus, you don't have to worry about doing updates after the install. And it's really not that much longer to install it, at least not my personal observation. So I'm going to go with online here. And that'll bring up our Calamares installer. And here's the installer, and we got an install log going on in the background here. So this will kind of give you a status on what's going on during the install, which is kind of cool. So I like that. It's almost like a little bit of a mixture of command line feedback along with using a GUI installer. So a nice touch there, in my opinion. I'm going to hit next here because that's all good. And same with our keyboard settings, set for English US. And then here, I'm just going to select Erase Disk, Start from Fresh. I noticed that it's using XFS for the default file system. You can select here and manually select ButterFX or ext4 and so forth. Not really sure why it's XFS, but given that it's at the default, I'm just going to kind of go with that. So I'm going to hit Next. And now we have our choices of desktops. So by default, of course, we're using the Plasma desktop. And that's what I want to stay with is a Plasma desktop. But look at all these choices. This is great. You got all this selection here to choose from. And even some that I didn't see on the website, like Sway. I don't remember seeing that. And LXDE as well. And then, of course, all the other popular ones here too, like Cinnamon, i3 Window Manager, OpenBox, UKUI, and Wayfire. Very cool. So I like these choices. I'm going to stay with the KDE Plasma. And here it's showing extras that you can install related to your desktop. Of course, by default, all the KDE stuff are checked by default. But if for some reason you want to be more selective, you can just select the little side arrow here and open this up. And then you can see all these different choices. And if for some reason you didn't want some of the things in here, for example, maybe you don't like Kate for some reason, you got some beef against it because you're a guy and your ex-girlfriend's name was Kate and she really broke your heart. Well, then you can uncheck her right here and that'll take care of her. So anyway, that's what that's for. And then you have your base development and common packages. And of course you want to keep those too. And again, you can go up here and deselect anything that you might want to deselect, but I wouldn't do that unless you're an advanced user and you really kind of know what you're doing there. And so I'm going to hit Next here. And then I'm going to add in a username, the usual Toadwake. And then I think all the defaults are good and we'll just add in a password. And then you also have the option to log in automatically without asking for the password. And that's kind of nice if you don't have any privacy concerns or other people that you want to keep out of your computer. And typically I don't check that, but I do like the option with the use the same password for the administrator account. So I'm going to stick with that. And then I'm going to hit install. This is a little overview of everything here. And so it all looks good to me. It's going to erase everything on the disk. So I'm good with that. I'm going to hit install now. And then we have our really sharp looking installer. It's taken off. And again, you can see the install log here. And from all the experience I've had with making this video multiple times, there's going to be another log window that's going to show up here as well. And so that's going to cover the installer. So don't let that confuse you. You might have to just slide the log window over a little bit so you can continue to see the status over here. So I'm just going to pause the video, and when it's done, or mostly done, I'll be right back. And I'm back before it's done. That's because I just wanted to show you the Pacman log. This is the other window that pops up after you get into the install just a little bit. A lot of information that you have access to during the install process, which is kind of nice. And you can kind of see what's going on along the ways. And right now it's installing the base development packages that we had checked there during the install. So that's kind of a nice thing to see. Okay, and we're all set. So everything is finished here. So if I just click back here on the installer, we can see that it's all done. So everything should have gone just fine. I'm going to hit done here and then just kind of close everything out. And then I will shut down and we'll reboot. Okay, and here we are in our reboot. So rebooting CachyOS. And if everything went okay, which I'm pretty sure it did, then we should be getting to our login screen here any second. There's our upside down text and our login screen. So here we are, we're at our login screen. By default, the session is Plasma Wayland. You can also choose from the X11, which that's where I run my sessions personally on my daily machines, because personally with my hardware setups, at least in my particular situation, I have problems with Wayland, like I've already said. So anyways, I'm just going to type in our password and we'll get right into our desktop and see what we got. And there's our CachyOS splash screen. And here we are, even with a new desktop background. So the first thing you see is your CachyOS hello screen here. And then the same theming, we got our kind of Windows 11-ish style theme here, which I think looks beautiful. I love the color scheming in here and the icons and everything, really unique. I think it kind of stands out. Our CachyOS just gives you a nice impression right off the bat. And then here, of course, we got our documentation, our README and release info and so forth. So on the front of the welcome screen, mostly links here, support, and then project links where you can get involved, help with the development, and even donate, which is always important. And then that is followed by our two main buttons here on the bottom, which we have our apps and tweaks and install apps. So if I hit the apps and tweaks here, then you can see different tweaks that you can apply without having to use the command line. So these are kind of little shortcuts. And up here on top, it looks like you have some services that you can enable and disable just with a checkbox. And then here we got fixes. So if you're having any kind of issues, just using these buttons. So you could run a system update from here, reinstall all your packages, refresh key rings, remove orphans, clear the package cache, remove the DB lock. If you happen to be using Pacman in the console and it says you're locked out, you can unlock it here easily without having to look up the command line. So nice. And rank mirrors if you need to speed up your mirrors for your downloads when you're updating. And then here we got applications. We got the CachyOS package installer and the CachyOS kernel manager. So you can even manage kernels easily through their utilities. I think this is really nice. I like that. I'm hitting the kernel manager here, and here you can choose from all kinds of kernels. So if you want to do some kind of customization where you need a custom kernel, you can get in here and just kind of change it, change your version or whatever. And the versions go way back. The current version is 6.1.12-1 is of the time of this video, but you can go back here 6.05, even down into the 5. So if you need something more LTS, like the 5.15 kernel here, we got the Core Linux LTS there. So you got tons of options. You could even use unknown versions if that's your thing. So very nice. I like the fact that you have easy access to that. And then, of course, you got your CachyOS package installer, which is a customized package manager. And it's kind of like a GUI front end for the console. And I really like this. Their package manager is really well designed, in my opinion. And so if you go over here, you got all your different categories: audio, development, games, graphics, and so forth. And if you just select on the little side arrow, then it'll open up and you can see different audio apps that are recommended right off the bat. Or you can just go up here in the search window and search for something specific that you wouldn't see in the list. So if I want to install something like Audacity, I could just check that right here and then hit install. And then you can see a little feedback here in the window. And then if I hit OK, it'll proceed with the install. And we get command line feedback here asking if I want to proceed with the installation. So I'll just say yes. And so now it's retrieving packages. And I really like how it's really so integrated with the command line. Like I said, it really is a GUI front end to the command line. And that's what makes it fast. And it installed it very quickly. So a really nice package installer. This is something that I just really like. And well done, Cachy people. So yes, that is the installer. Here we also have our repos set up here. And so these are other things available from the repo, apparently. And it gives you a list of things that are installed, 967 items, and there's 2 upgradable items available right now. And then under Flatpaks, we can get a list of Flatpaks, and it's letting us know that Flatpak is not currently installed. So I'm going to just click yes to say it's okay to go ahead and install it, and then just okay again. And now we're getting our Flatpak installed, and then this will hook us up with the FlatHub repositories. And so then you'll have access to Flatpaks, and those are nice to have available here. I never feel the urgency for Flatpaks on Arch because I have access to everything, but every once in a while you get something that's a little bit troublesome. I've seen that in KDE Live before, where you get an update to KDE Live and then you experience some kind of issue. And so if you have the Flatpak on there, a lot of times those issues go away. So Flatpaks really do have their advantages even on an Arch-based system. And of course, if you're on a Debian system where software is older, then the advantages become more obvious because, of course, you can run the latest and greatest something on a Debian without harming your system because it's all kind of sandbox there. All right, so that's all set up now. And here's a little notice here that says you might need to log out and log back in to see installed items in the menu. And that kind of makes sense because it's got to give the service a chance to kick in and so forth. So if I were to install a Flatpak item in here, like a Blender, then it may not show up in the menu because I didn't log out and log back in. So I kind of appreciate that in there as well. And then, of course, over here, we can click on our console output tab anytime if we want to see the output from the console. So a very nice package installer. I like that. And down here, we have a question mark, and that's actually referring to the Discover desktop. And Discover is not actually installed on here, so I'm not really quite sure why the icon there is on the desktop. You could install Discover, but actually Octopi is installed in here by default. So I think that might have been maybe a last minute change and the devs might have forgot to just kind of remove that icon or change it to Octopi. You could either install Discover, or if you like Octopi better, then you can just come up here, right click and unpin that from the taskbar, and then come over to System, scroll down a little bit, and here's our Octopi. So let's just open that real quick since we're on the subject of package installers. So here we have Octopi, and this is our other package installer. Now Discover is more visible in the sense that it's got graphics in it. So graphical is probably the word I'm looking for. So Discover is more graphical, so you can see more things like icons and pictures of the software, screenshots, and so forth. And so if you like Discover, you could go with Discover, and then the question mark that was down there in the taskbar will just turn into your Discover shortcut icon. And actually, from what I've heard, we're running the latest Plasma here at 5.27 on Arch, and apparently some really good improvements to Discover are a part of that. So that's another reason you might want to give Discover a shot there instead of just taking it off. But since we have Octopi here, Octopi is another fast installer similar to the CachyOS installer, where you can just go in here and do a quick find. So I could add like Inkscape in here. I could do a find for that. And here we have Inkscape, and of course it's the latest version 1.22-4, and I can check that. I can select the install here, and then it kind of lets us know that there's optional dependencies here that we can add. And I'm always good with adding these, so I'm just going to check them all. And if you know what these dependencies are, you can kind of pick and choose if you prefer as well. But I'm just going to go with all of them, hit OK, and then I'm going to select the little check mark box up here. This will let me apply the changes, and then we should start installing. So I'm going to hit yes and authenticate. And you can see the feedback again down below. You got the output window, which I kind of like. I like seeing the output like that. I guess that's because me and the command line just kind of go way back. So it's kind of nice to see the command line just kind of available at a glance. Okay, so it looked like that installed all right. So if I go over here, I should be able to see Inkscape. There's Audacity. That's under our multimedia. So that's what we installed through the CachyOS installer. And then up here under graphics, we got Inkscape, and there it is. Worked like a charm. You got the little ET looking guy here. We don't really look like that. Anyways, here's the Paru tool. And so it's using Paru as the AUR wrapper there to access the AUR. So if you want to use the AUR, we can actually select that. I believe the AUR is turned off by default because you can have configuration issues when installing from the AUR. Sometimes it can conflict with certain libraries. And so you can run into issues in Arch sometimes when installing certain packages from the AUR. So that's something you want to keep in mind. If something starts acting kind of funky after you installed something from the AUR, that might be the source of the issue. So here it's using Paru as opposed to Yay, which is available on a lot of distros. But Paru is cool as well. It gives you your Paru options here. So you can also do a no confirm if you just wanted to go right to the install without confirmation. And then, of course, search for outdated AUR packages. Nice. Octopi is really a nice package manager, but personally, I just kind of like that CachyOS manager. And again, if you want to go more visible, just download the Discover package manager, and then you're good to go with the more visual stuff. And so if we close that, here, another shortcut we have right here in the center is our Dolphin file manager, which is really nice. And as you can see over here, we got a blur effect here on the side of the Dolphin, which I really like that. It's not quite as easy to see with this background because it's kind of a darker background. But if I were to open something up here, or even change the wallpaper. So if I went over here and selected configure desktop and wallpaper, and I want to change this anyway, so we might as well look at it. This will kind of segue right into what I'm saying. So here we got a bunch of wallpaper showing up, and so they got some cool wallpaper in here. A lot of it I think is probably hard to say. This wallpaper may be kind of a CachyOS thing. There's somebody with a funky looking mask, but this might be a good example. Here you can kind of see the transparency. And so we got this blur effect, which is really nice. And I think that just adds to the bling, so to speak. Or if I put this really light background, you can see that again through the blur. And so that really just gives it a really nice look without washing out your words here on the side. Because if that were to be fully transparent, then of course these words could blend right into the background, and that's not too cool. And now we got the orange here. So beautiful. I really like that. And a fairly nice selection of backgrounds here as well. And you can also see that we have the light and dark version depending on your theme for the mountain there. So if you're in a light theme, that mountain will actually change as well. And for me, it's kind of a tough call with the background. I don't know. I kind of like this one. And the mask one is kind of cool too. That's like kind of like a fashion statement, I guess. I don't know. That's cool though. So that's our background settings. And then here on our mouse actions, and I guess I forgot to apply that. But I like the fact too that you now have instant feedback. Back in the day, and that wasn't very long ago, you didn't get instant feedback when you changed wallpaper in KDE. So I'm really glad to see that they finally incorporated that. And then here we got our icon settings. So by default, the icons are arranged from left to right. And I think before they used to just simply say horizontally and vertically or rows and columns, but now it's showing left to right or top to bottom. And so left to right obviously is horizontally. We don't have any icons on the desktop by default, but if they were on here, they would be going horizontally across. But if you like the traditional way of vertical up and down icons, then you can just change that right here. And then of course your alignment by default is going to align left, but you can also align right. And then if you want to lock your icons in place, you can do that right here and apply it, and then it'll lock them right in place and they won't move around. Or if you have other people in your area, that'll keep them from moving around. Excellent. So that kind of covers the wallpaper. How about let's look at some more of the theming here since we're kind of in the wallpaper thing. So I'm going to go over here and go into our system settings. So if I just click on settings here and then select system settings, that'll bring us up into our settings. And by default, we're kind of already at our appearance. And so it's using the Breeze theme by default, it looks like. But we can select more appearance settings or just select the appearance over here. It'll take you into the same place. And let me back up a minute. I just saw something that's also important. Going to hit the home button here. That'll get us back to the intro page. And here we have clicking files or folders. This is actually related to the Dolphin file manager. And for some, this might be kind of important because by default, it's selected as open. So if you click a file or folder here, it'll actually open it with one single click. So if I select, like, say, our documents directory, if I click on that, then it takes me directly into that directory. For some, that might be confusing because some people want to highlight a folder or a file, but they don't actually want to activate it. And so if that's confusing for you, you can change that option right here. So if we select the option for selects them, so when you click on it, it selects a file and doesn't put you inside it or open it, then that'll solve that issue if that's a problem. And for some users, they might be more comfortable with the selects them. And personally, I kind of prefer the selects them option as well. So then if I'm in my home, and now if I just select it, one single click, it's going to select the folder. And so now I can select them all just one at a time. And then if I want to go inside, all I got to do is just double click my mouse. So that's the traditional kind of method, especially Windows users would be comfortable with. So I just wanted to throw that in there. So back to appearance. So here we can see by default, it looks like our Breeze is our default global theme. And so that is in the dark settings mode here. And then, of course, we got others to choose from here, too. We got Emerald. That looks kind of cool. So if I hit apply, now we got this Emerald look here, and that looks really nice. I actually kind of like that. That's even a cooler color than the blue, I think. So that's another alternative. And then we have the lavender round. So that looks cool, too. Actually, that wallpaper kind of looks consistent with the wallpaper we have here. In that demo. But I'm not seeing any changes with the lavender. So that might require an extra library, maybe, for that to actually work. Not quite sure what the deal is there. And so it's staying with the Emerald. So let me select another and just hit apply. Okay, so the CachyOS Nord is working, but apply doesn't work with the lavender, so we're good there. So if we go back here, CachyOS Nord actually looks like the default as opposed to Breeze because that's a light theme. So being highlighted, I guess that tricked me. And so then, of course, we got our application style. So if you want to tweak it, if you want to tweak specific elements of the theme instead of the whole theme altogether, then here we could go into application style and kind of get different styles here for our tabs and buttons and so forth. So you can make them kind of look different within the global theme itself. And then of course we got configure GNOME GTK application style. And if you're not sure what that means, if you click on this, we can go in here and CachyOS Nord, we can actually choose a different style. So if you're using a GTK app like GIMP and the theming looks totally different than your system theme, you can go in here and change that so it matches your system theme, and then it'll look consistent with your other applications. So sometimes that theme will change. Or if none of these themes work with your GTK app, then you can select the button here that says Get New GNOME GTK Application Styles, and you can download another different custom style to theme out your GTK app, because of course KDE Plasma is using the Qt or the Qt framework. So sometimes you'll get differences in certain applications and how they look. So this is kind of designed to make that so everything's more uniform, and that's kind of where you would specify that. And then here in the Plasma style, more styling options, so you could make your application windows different than right here. The lavender round is actually currently selected. If we were to select something else like the emerald color, you could have the emerald color accents in here inside your windows, but still retain the overall Cachy Nord look. And then here, of course, is our color accents, and it's using it from the color scheme right now, which I think is good. I would kind of stay with the color scheme because I think that really works well. But if you want something here, you can also go with the current wallpaper. And then if you apply it, you can come down here, and then that changes your color scheme. So now you can see, maybe not on the menu, but here, over here you can see it. And then, of course, in your Dolphin, you also get the change reflected here. So I'm going to jump back up to color scheme because I like the color scheme, and then I'm going to apply that. And then, of course, we got our window decorations. And this is kind of important because here in the CachyOS default theme, we have our window buttons over here on the left-hand side, which you Mac users would be pretty comfortable with that. But if you're a former Windows user, or you're just somebody that's more traditional and you're more comfortable with the buttons over on the right-hand side, this is a place to change it. And of course, you can change your window decoration theme right here. But if you click on the title bar buttons tab here, you can see these buttons correspond to these up here. So I can just drag these over to the other side if I want to have them on the other side. So they're easy to drag over. It's just like that. And then if I hit apply, now our buttons instantly show up over here on the right-hand side. So that's how you change those. If for some reason you really love the theme, but you just don't like the positioning, that's where you can deal with that. And then, of course, we got our font settings, so you can customize your fonts here, and then our icons. So by default, we're using the Care White theme. And that's a pretty cool theme. I actually kind of like this theme. But here you can choose other, Adwaita, Breeze, Breeze Dark icons. And then, of course, you can select the Get New icons if you want to get something totally different right off the internet directly, and it'll install it right from here. Pretty nice. And then we have our cursor settings here. And I've been getting some feedback, like from Rocky Rob. I won't mention Rocky's name, but he has mentioned several times that it is really hard to follow the cursor, and I think he's got a really good point there. So since I'm in here, I'm just going to select this Get New Cursor button and let this load. And I'm going to get something big and easy to see. In fact, it's going to be the same cursor I was using at the beginning of this video, which I didn't mention, but I had a big, gigantic yellow cursor on there, so it's easy to see in a video. And so I'm just going to use that. And what that theme was a theme called Oxygen Yellow. So I'm going to go in here, hit search, and just type that in. Oxygen Yellow. And there it is. So I'm just going to hit this, and I believe it was this one that I had installed on my desktop. So I'm going to select that and then select use. And then that'll activate that big yellow cursor. And then when I close this window, I can see it here. So when I select this, you can see that it changes here. But when I'm inside the window, it kind of goes back to the default Adwaita. So with this selected, I can come down here and I can change my size here too. It gives me two options, 24 and then 48. For me, 24 is pretty comfortable, but 48 might actually work better for the video itself. So when I come up here, now you can see this gigantic, humongous cursor. And so I'm thinking this might actually show up better on video. So I'll kind of keep it at that giant, humongous cursor. But you might also notice, for some of you that might want to use a cursor like this all the time, when I move it down into a window, it changes back to the tiny cursor. And if you go out on the desktop, it's also a tiny cursor. There is a fix for that. I'm not really quite sure why that's like that by default. But if I was to go out of here and just open my terminal, so I'm going to just hit Alt space and type in console. I'm going to edit my index theme file, which is the theme for cursors. And so if I go in here and I just kind of enlarge this a bit so it's easier to see, I can do a sudo and use the nano editor, which is my preferred editor, and then slash user usr slash share slash icons slash default slash index theme. And as you can see, the fish shell is installed in here, so it's got the autocomplete, which is really nice. I'm just going to go ahead and type it out anyway, and then authenticate. And here we can see in our icon theme, we got this inherits equals Adwaita. Adwaita is the other cursor theme that it's changing to when we're outside of the window decoration there. So if I just specify the Oxygen yellow theme that we downloaded now, I would just type that here. And of course, this theme wouldn't have a space in it. So what we would type is Oxygen, and I don't think this is case sensitive, but Oxygen underscore yellow. And so if we specify that theme and then Control S to save that and then exit out, then this theme should actually stay uniform all across the board now. So if I close this and then close these windows and log out, it'll reload our theme, and then we should be able to see that cursor all the time. So I'm just going to go over here and just log out, hit the log out selection and log out, and then log back in. And now we got our giant cursor and even a different splash screen. That's interesting. I don't remember changing that, but that might have something to do with tweaking the theme there. But that was cool. But now you can see that our cursor now stays big everywhere you go. And that's how you do that. That's the trick. Something new you learned. That might be new to some of you. And also, here in our application launcher, you can see the transparency here as well. You can see the blurred background. That stands out pretty good with this wallpaper. So I'm glad I chose this wallpaper. That actually works really well for demonstrating the nice blur effect that you get in this theming. So just really beautifully done, I gotta say. And while I was in the login window, I noticed that it's really kind of generic looking. So let's kind of fix that up too, since we're here. So I'm going to go here to settings and select system settings again. And let's fix that login and make it look more appealing. So what we want to do is in our system settings, I must have minimized that or something. So let me click that again. Here we go. If we go down in our settings and we select, it should be startup. And before we do this, let's go to users. And so if we go to users, here we got our avatar up here. And right now it's just a generic placeholder. So I'm going to click on that. And then you can see all these choices here for avatars, or you can choose your own custom file if you want to have something more customized. And then we can just choose something like, Well, I like that. That's kind of cool. The drink on the beach there. That's perfect to see in February. So now that we got a moderately stylish icon there, or avatar, now let's go back into our startup and shutdown, and always forget to apply it. You got to apply everything in Plasma. I don't understand that. You don't have to do that anywhere else like XFCE, but that's all right. It's not a deal killer. So anyways, here we are. We're back in our login screen for our setup here. And so we can change our default. You could go with like Maldives or Ilarium, I think is how that's pronounced, or Ilarion. And Breeze, I think, might be the default. Or you can just choose something totally different. Like you can go over here and get a new theme. You can choose something that really has nothing to do with anything. And they have a lot of great themes in there. But for simplicity, I think I'm just going to go with maybe the Breeze default, which I think is kind of nice. They also have some CachyOS themes in here if you like something more tailored to the branding. And so I'm just going to hit apply for the Breeze theme and authenticate this. And now, this is really important. If I were to log out right now, you would see the Breeze theme here. However, you would not see the avatar, and you'd be like, where's my avatar? I changed it. And you can see the avatar here on your menu if you select it. There's our Toadwick avatar with a little drink on the beach, but you would not see it here. Yeah. Why? Well, we got to apply our Plasma settings to make that show up. So if I click this button here, that'll solve that issue. And if you don't believe me, look. And there's the avatar. So it all worked. So if you're changing your theme or using the same theme and you have an avatar and it's not showing up, then I would give that a try and just click that button. And that should solve the issue without having to go in and actually edit the SDDM config file. So here's our hello screen again. And our install apps, if we actually hit that, this will take us to another window here. And you can see browsers. So here, for example, and we got all these different categories, of course, but we have the CachyOS browser down here in the corner. And if you want an alternative, if you're somebody that must use Brave or Chromium or Firefox or one of these other browsers here, even the ungoogled Chromium, then here's where you can choose it and then do an easy install to an alternative to one of your other more mainline browsers. However, the CachyOS browser is actually really nice. It is a customized version of Firefox, so it's kind of a fork there, or maybe it's kind of a modified version of LibreFox or something like that, but whatever it is, it's pretty nice. And it also comes with some security plugins to block trackers and so forth, and then another extension for, we have Canvas Blocker, then we got Dark Reader and uBlock Origin. So these are kind of installed here by default. Dark Reader will kind of carry over your dark theme into the browser, or give you a dark theme in the browser, even if you have a light theme. So that's our CachyOS browser that will give you a customized experience here for your file browsing. But you always have options. So Linux is always about options. And then, of course, we got access to all these other areas here, email and ebook, office suites, and so forth. And speaking of apps, let's see what we have installed by default. So if we jump up here, we got our development. So under development, we got our Kate text editor here, which is one of the best ones out there. A Qt Designer UI file viewer, Meld, which is a file difference utility, and then we got Micro, another text editor. That's a simpler text editor. And then over here under graphics, of course, we got Inkscape that we installed earlier, and then GwenView for our picture viewer. And under internet, our Cachy browser, KDE Connect, so you can connect your phone. A nice utility. And then we have under multimedia, the Pulse Audio Volume Control. It's actually quite basic by default, our app, so it gives you a lot of room to install the things that you want to install. And then, of course, we have Audacity, which we installed earlier as well. So a very bare bones for the applications, and personally, I find that kind of preferable because that gives me a chance to install the things that I want to install. and no Office Suite by default. So you can go in there and just install your preferred Office Suite or no Office Suite at all. But if you prefer something like an alternative to LibreOffice, that's typically what you find on most distros. Maybe you want to have only Office instead. You don't have to bother uninstalling the Libre first, or vice versa. And then under some systems, we got some of our utilities. We got the Alacrity. So Alacrity Terminal is another alternative terminal that you can use rather than Console. Although personally, I like Console. And then we got BTOP++, and that's kind of a different version of HTOP, really. It looks very similar to me, but it's a little, but it's got some fanciness to it, which is kind of nice. But here under BTOP, it looks like we're using, at the moment, about 1.2 gigs here of resources. And of course, I've had things open and kind of running and stuff like that. And we got our hello screen here. So typically, I think this, in my experience, has been idling somewhere around 900 or so. So it's a little bit high right now, but not any higher than you would see in GNOME. But overall, this actually is very snappy. And I was actually so impressed with Cachy that I installed it on one of my dailies, and I've been kind of evaluating it here on a little bit more of a long-term basis. And so far, I'm really happy with it. I gotta close out of there. And again, we got our fish shell in here, so that's a pretty nice feature. And then under our utilities, we got our Arc for our archiver, and of course, and we got our emoji selector, K, as we saw before, Kwrite Spectacle as a screenshot utility, and Vim as another console-based text editor. So you Vim fans out there are all set. And then, of course, our default application launcher here. And you can also go down here and right-click on your application launcher icon and select Show Alternatives. And typically, your alternatives are your application dashboard, application launcher, and application menu. And I've demoed these in other distro videos before on KDE. And so that's, for most of you, that's probably nothing new. But if you want something like the application dashboard, that's something I like because it's really big. But in addition, there's another alternative launcher that I really like. And it's something I kind of discovered almost by accident. But if we right click and select Add Widgets, we have our widget launcher here where we can select from all kinds of different launchers, widgets here. And there's one widget. If we go up here and select Get New Widgets, and then select download new Plasma widgets, then it'll open up another window here, and we can go in here, and there's a really cool widget called NavDexie. And so I'm going to type that right here in this window, NAV and then DEXIE, I think it is. And I might have spelled that wrong. Oh no, here it is. Okay, so down here in the corner we got NavDexie menu. So I'm going to select Install. And this is really a nice, I think. So now that we got that installed, I'm going to close that. And then if I come over here and add a new widget, I can find the NavDexie right here in the index, and here it is. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to drag it right down here next to the other launcher on the panel. And now you can see the NavDexie launcher there. So I'm going to close this, and now I'm going to right click on the panel, select Enter Edit Mode, and then I'm going to right click on the original launcher here, the application launcher, and then I'm going to select Remove Application Launcher. And so now we just have the NavDexie here. I'm just going to X out up here on top, and that'll get us out of edit mode. And now we have the NavDexie, and you can see there's three little icons here. This is your main icon here. When you select that, it takes you right into your launcher, and it's really great. I love this launcher. We have our different categories over here, which change while you're hovering, and then your recent applications, which to me, I've kind of gotten spoiled on this because when you launch applications, when you select NavDexie, by default, you'll see your recent applications up here. So it gives you really quick access to all the things that you use the most often. And for me, that's really convenient. I really like that. Then you also have your favorites over here. And then your power bar over here, your restart, log out, shut down, and so forth, which is very cool. And then, of course, you can also click on this little item here, and that'll shrink it down. And that'll just get you out of there. Or you can really just click anywhere in the menu, and it'll get you right out of there. And then here, the center indicator here, or icon, is your show desktop. So you got a show desktop built right in. If I have something open, like if I had several documents open, several applications open, like here we got our Dolphin file manager, and maybe I have my system stuff open. Then, of course, your show desktop is going to work just like expected. Click on it, and everything minimizes. Click on it again, and it all comes back. And then the third icon here is your task selector. So you got easy access to that as well. Nice. And, of course, just click off to the side, and then that'll disengage right there. Or you can select one of your tasks specifically, like the setup screen. Very nice. So this is really something I would recommend. And of course, your search window is right there available at any time you want to do a search. Just a fantastic launcher, something I've really kind of grown attached to. So that's another alternative that goes on Jack's recommended list. So overall, this is just a beautiful system. CachyOS, I totally recommend this. Absolutely. I've been running this on my system, like I said before, for several days now, probably 4 or 5 days already, and I haven't had any issues to speak of with it. And again, I'm running mine in the X11 session. So Xorg, at least in my situation, I need to run Xorg. Wayland just does not show itself as a reliable session for me, at least for my particular setup and my particular hardware. It's problematic. And like I said, that's why I had to make several videos just to get this video out. This CachyOS review should have been out like 4 days ago, and it's still not out. And it all turned out to be because of Wayland. And it took me a long time to figure that out because it didn't really look like a session related issue that I was having. But it was, to my amazement. That's why you're seeing this video now, because I'm in Xorg. But anyway, that is not Cachy's fault. That's just a Wayland thing. And Wayland and my system just don't jive together. And as you can see here from the branded wallpaper, it says CachyOS, best distro based on Arch. And man, you know what? I might even be inclined to believe that, because this has been a very snappy system for me. It's been running beautifully. I haven't had any issues with it, and everything seems to run really quick. And that's with the blur effect. You have all that blur effect you can see down there on the panel. It's transparent, but it's showing blur again with the background. You can see the gradient there. And with our Dolphin, we got the blur effect. And even on the standard menu in KDE, you got the blur effect in the background again on the application launcher on the standard there. So those blur effects, a lot of times they can use up some resources, and I've used those before on machines that were not very robust, and sometimes the blur effect can kind of slow things down a bit in some cases, but I'm not seeing that here on CachyOS. So caching, it does well. So what can I say? And the fact that it's Arch-based, that makes it practical for me to be able to use as well as a daily. So for now, I kind of switched over to Cachy because I really want to know more about Cachy and have a more long-term experience with it. So here I am. I'm in Cachy, even though I'm on a VM right here on my daily. I am using Cachy right now. So I'm going to see how that goes. So those are just some of the highlights with CachyOS. So I hope this look at CachyOS was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.